For the Georgia Bulldogs this most recent season, they found out what it was like to play the roles of both heartbreakers and the heartbroken. First, the role of heartbreakers, getting revenge on Auburn in a regular season loss by beating the Tigers in the SEC Championship game and beating them handily, thus Georgia punching their ticket to the college football playoff. And weeks later, at the Rose Bowl game, national semifinal, you had Georgia trailing by 17 points, coming from behind and in double overtime, scoring the game-winning touchdown, thus breaking the hearts of Sooner Nation, including mine. But the following week in the national championship game, Georgia found out what it was like to be the heartbroken. They led Alabama in the second half, only to see the Tide with a backup QB come from behind, and then in overtime, with Georgia leading by 3 and the defense, 2nd and 26, it looked like Georgia was in good shape to maybe win the national championship. But then Tua Tagovailoa threw the game-winning touchdown, the 41-yarder, and just like that, Bama won another national title, and Georgia ended up empty-handed. But still, you could tell the amount of progress that Kirby Smart has made in just 2 seasons, that's right, just 2, at UGA. The Bulldogs, once again, will have a big-time recruiting class, and you have a feeling that's going to continue as long as Smart is there. Georgia will still have enough weapons to make another push toward getting to that college football playoff. And you get Jake Fromm back, the quarterback, whom as a true freshman stepped into a big-time role after Jacob Eason was hurt early on and didn't play for the rest of the year. By the way, Eason is now at Washington. So Fromm, I thought he was a great student of the game, studied the game well, and very rarely put his team in a position to where it had to make them harder to win. In other words, Fromm, I thought, managed the game superbly. 24 touchdowns, only 7 picks, QB rating of 160, and you get Jacob Fromm once again back. But will Fromm be the quarterback the entire season? You might be saying, why would you say that? Alabama, yeah, they get big-time players. Well, Georgia does too. And Georgia ended up getting the top recruit in the country, Justin Fields from the state of Georgia, a dual-threat quarterback, not only with the arm, not only with the speed, a tough guy to bring down too, 230 pounds, and Georgia fans are extremely excited about him. How excited? In the spring game, which saw more than 80,000 Georgia fans attended, it was Fields who ended up getting the loudest applause anytime he stepped on the field. So that tells you the anticipation, but also the ingredients of what Justin Fields can bring. And I think, if you want my opinion on this, which I'm sure you probably don't, I think both quarterbacks are going to play this season. And Fields, again, he gives you that dimension of being able to break a big one. And again, at 230, he's going to be hard to bring down. So you have Fromm, you have Fields, you have 2 quarterbacks who can lead this Bulldog team. Bulldogs were led, no question, by the running attack in 2017. We know this because they averaged 258 yards per game, which was top 10 in the country and number 1 in the SEC. But life has to go on after Nick Chubb and Sony Michel. The duo, well, they're in the NFL. In fact, Michel was a first-round draft pick. So DeAndre Swift, who was number 3 last year in the depth chart, now becomes number 1 last year as a freshman, averaged 7.6 yards per carry. Had 3 touchdowns, over 600 yards rushing. You bring in also, too, Elijah Holyfield, that's Evander's son, who averaged 5.9 yards per pop. Yes, the running game won't be the same without Chubb and without Michel, but still it will be able to produce yardage and it'll be able to produce touchdowns, and it still should make Georgia a 2-dimensional threat. The Bulldogs receiving core, they do lose Javon Wims. He was their number 1 receiver. We'll see how the rest of the guys can stack up. Terry Godwin's back, 38 catches a year ago and 6 touchdowns. So he'll probably be the number 1 guy. Riley Ridley returns along with Mecole Hardman. So Georgia still some experience there at the wide receiver position. Offensive line should be one of the best in college football despite losing first-round pick Isaiah Wynn at the left tackle position. They'll move Andrew Thomas, who started last year as a freshman. They'll move him from the right to the left tackle spot. Left guard, you have Kendall Baker, a senior, and another senior in the center in Lamont Gilliard. So Georgia, yeah, this was an offense that produced very effective numbers, top 5 in the SEC in total yardage. And again, I would expect the ground game to be the foundation of this team. The defense last season was one of the best in all of college football. Number 6 in the country in scoring defense, just 16 points per game allowed. There are some bodies to replace, and we'll tell you about that as the report progresses. Defensive line, they'll be strong, though. Jonathan Ledbetter, you get him back at defensive end, 38 tackles a year ago. Tyler Clark had 41 tackles at a defensive tackle. And you get another DT with experience. That's Jay Hayes, formerly at Notre Dame. So this defensive line in the 3-4 alignment, the line is going to be just fine. Biggest concern I have for Georgia will be linebackers. Even for Georgia, this is going to be a concern because you lost not one, not two, but 3 starting linebackers, including Roquan Smith and his 137 tackles from a year ago. Just recently, by the way, ended his holdout with the Chicago Bears. Lorenzo Carter, another draft pick, he's gone as well. Natrez Patrick is back at inside linebacker. The leading career returning tackler for the Bulldogs at 116. On the field, he makes contributions. Off the field is a whole nother ball of wax. He's had not one, not two, but 3 marijuana-related arrests. So the guy obviously has to stay away from that stuff. If so, then he will be able to make a contribution. Secondary, Georgia will be in much better shape than the linebacking core. This will be one of the best secondaries in all of college football. DeAndre Baker is a big reason why. The corner, last season, 3 interceptions, had 44 tackles. He'll be very active, and some thought that he could have left for the NFL, but instead decided to come back for his senior year. Tyreek McGee has great close-down speed. You have him at the other corner. And the strong safety position, the talented J.R. Reed, 79 tackles last season. They do need a new punter, but place kicking, that part solidified with Rodrigo Blankenship, who last season was 20 of 23 in field goal kicking. The schedule for the Bulldogs, there are some games of emphasis at South Carolina, not just because it's the SEC opener, not just because it's on the road, but it's the second overall game of the season, so the Bulldogs better watch out. Rest of the schedule, October 13th, LSU, as I've mentioned, has the talent. Team-wise, though, I don't think that they stack up well against Georgia, even though the game's in Baton Rouge. I like Georgia in that one. And then, of course, the world's largest outdoor cocktail party, as both Florida and Georgia will get 2 weeks to prepare for that game at Jacksonville. And Auburn, November the 10th, this year's games between the hedges. The Bulldogs might lose one regular season game, but they will still be the head and shoulders favorite to win the SEC East. And I see a rematch with Alabama and Georgia, this time for the SEC Championship. Going to be a lot of fun come December. That's my look at Georgia. Catch you next time.